Hey everybody, welcome to the show, Board Game Reviews. This is a monthly vlog for the month of September, and this is a vlog where I get a chance to do some quick little bits about some various different board games I've either been playing or I'm interested in. Also talk about some upcoming Kickstarters or some extra pre-orders for some games that may be coming out in the immediate future. Also stick around for the end, because at the end of this video there's usually a poll where you, the audience, gets to interact with the channel. Your feedback can help influence future content or future things may show up on the channel, but stick around after the break for our very first game that we're going to look at. Now, if you've been around the channel for a while, you know that I really adore strategy games. Strategy games are some of my favorite games. Matter of fact, my #1 game of all time is a strategy war game, Space Empires 4X. And the reason why I really love strategy games is for the fact that they are the kind of games that, well, besides you're building your global engine of domination, they're also games that are all about getting in the heads of the other players. Now, I do enjoy tactical games, but the thing that I really enjoy about strategy games is that you're trying to get into the other players' heads, figure out what kind of strategy they're doing, and also figure out when you can go ahead and betray them and stab them right in the back. But, you know, that's what strategy games are for. Now, the reason why I enjoy strategy games is because of the great gameplay they enjoy, but one of the detriments to a good strategy game is the fact that they take a long time to play, which is why I also really enjoy social deduction games. Now, for me, a social deduction game is great because it takes the gameplay of a strategy game, the getting into the other players' heads, and shrinks it down into a much more digestible play time, and they also go into higher player counts. Heck, look at One Night Ultimate Werewolf. I think it plays up to 9 or 10 players. So that is why I really enjoy a good social deduction game, just the ability to get in the other players' heads, do a little bit of wheeling and dealing, and sometimes betray people, but hey, that's part of the fun for me. And that's why I enjoy games such as Coup, games such as One Night Ultimate Werewolf, or even The Resistance. All these games are a lot of fun for me because they allow you to get a lot of friends around the table and get that great enjoyment of social deduction and that strategy feeling like getting in the other player's head. So what this game is right now that we're going to go ahead and look at is the game of Enigma. Now, this is a game that I'm definitely going to be reviewing on the channel very quickly, because this is a game that is really cool and it's a lot better than I even thought it would be. After I played it a couple times, I started seeing the little bit of genius that was right in this game. Now, this is a game that is much inspired by other social deduction games, but it evolves the gameplay in some really cool ways. Now, the basic idea of the game is every single player is going to have their own special role they're trying to play. But much like these social deduction games, your role is hidden to the other players. The objective to win the game is you just need to complete your role. And if you complete your role, guess what? You win. But the trick here is you only have 4 turns to do it. And if you cannot win the game in 4 turns, then that means that the saboteur, if they're in the game, is going to win, or possibly Chaos is going to win. And if Chaos can win twice before any player can win 3 times, all the players have lost the game. So you already have an interesting wrinkle in this game. And another cool thing about this game is this game takes a little bit of mechanics for the classic game of Coup, because on your turn, you're simply going to look at a card at one of these different locations. You're going to see what the card is, and then you're going to place the card back down, and you're going to claim it's one of the locations. Now, there's multiple different locations in the game, but you're simply going to claim it's one of the locations and take the power of whatever that location gives you. If nobody challenges you, no problem. The next player is going to take their turn. They're going to do the exact same thing. But the challenge comes in if somebody decides to challenge you and says, no, that was not the Enigma code. You are absolutely lying. And if they decide to challenge you, they're also going to look at that card without showing it to any other players. Now, if you were telling the truth, they have to place the card face up, and now they've been silenced, and when their turn comes around, they have reduced powers and reduced abilities. And remember, you only have 4 turns in this game. Losing your powers for 1 turn can be very critical in this game, so it can be very careful for you to make sure you're challenging people at the right time. But if another player challenges you and you were lying, they still have to look at that card, but they get to place it face down, and now they get a little bit of information on you, because every single one of these roles has a different way that they are trying to win. So if a certain player lies about a card to get an ability, you can sit there and say, did they do that because they're the cryptologist? Did they make that decision because of the ghosts? Did they make that decision for any various different reasons? Because basically all these players just basically on their turn to win the game, they just need to know this board state and probably have a token or have a lack of that token. If they can know the board state and make correct guesses about the board state, they get to win the game. But if they fail to do so, they're out of the game for the rest of the round, and it's up to the remaining players to figure out if they can manage to win the game. So this game has some really cool classic social deduction involved in it, but it also has evolved the social deduction in a couple really interesting ways for a lot more gameplay. Has a lot of variety, a lot of different classes, character classes in this game, because you're not going to use all these, because this game plays from 1 to 5. Now you're going, wait, social deduction doesn't play for one player? Yeah, this is actually a social deduction game that has rules in it for you to play the game solo, and they work out really well. It's more of a puzzle style game, but it's actually a really interesting way to practice this game, because I would like to say this is a little bit more of an advanced social deduction game, much like Coup, where the first couple times you play Coup, you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing, I'm this. And then everybody knows you're lying because you haven't figured out the roles and the powers. So this game is much like that, where you're going to get much better the more you learn the powers of the different roles you can take, the powers of the different locations, and the powers of how everything goes together, and figure out exactly what everybody's trying to do. And they're very, very sparse, only 4 moves as they try to attempt to win the game. Next up we have is Nemos War. Now Nemos War, if you haven't watched my video for this game, this is probably one of the best thematic solo playing games that I have ever played. Victory Point Games did a phenomenal job when they designed this game. This is a game that's taken a classic novel and turned a classic novel into a really enjoyable board game that fits the theme and has a lot of very tough decisions in it. This is a game that I can play multiple times, and I have played multiple times. Every single time I played the game, I enjoyed even more. Matter of fact, I just played it last weekend by playing this game over Skype, over video chat, with a couple friends where I had a couple video cameras down on the game, and we just played the game. It was actually the first time for them, and the game is really, really enjoyable. What I've managed to get a hold of recently, though, is I've gotten all 3 of the expansion packs for this game, and those 3 expansion packs add a lot of variety to a game that already has a lot of variety built into it. Now, the first of these action packs adds in some extra adventure cards, which isn't that big of a deal. Extra adventure cards are always good. The cool thing about this game, if you haven't played it, you have this nice big stack of adventure cards right here. And when you play the game, you're not going to use all these adventure cards. I think there's about 65 in here, and in your average game, you're only going to use 26 of these. And the extra cards can be put off to the side for extra adventures or anything like that. But to win the game, you just have to go through 26 of those cards. So you already see that there's extra variety just by adding that first expansion pack, but that's not really what I really liked about what I've added in this game. What the really cool thing is one of the expansions actually adds 2 new motives to the game. Now the first motive is adventure, which is really interesting how this actually works out. Now for the adventure thing, it actually obviously accentuates the adventure mechanics of you trying to win the game by going on a lot of grand adventures. But every time you go on a grand adventure, you're going to reveal one of these little tokens. Now these tokens, if you manage to complete these adventures successfully, you're going to get these tokens, and these are some extra choices for you throughout the game. And that's what I always like in a good board game. More choices means more better game, in my opinion. And what these choices do is, much like treasures, the disposable treasures that you can get where you can discard them for an extra action, these are going to allow you to discard them for extra actions, but if you keep them throughout the entire game, they're going to give you extra victory points. But the treasures or these actions that these tokens are going to give you are phenomenally tempting for you. And there are going to be many times when you're playing the game and you need that extra benefit, and you have to weigh, is it worth losing those victory points just to take that extra benefit. So that's a really cool addition to the game. The other one I was a little bit leery of at first, because I was kind of like, it didn't really seem to fit the theme of the game. But instead of going to war in the game, your objective was to go ahead and see if you can be a humanist and create peace with all the other ocean liners, or not the ocean liners, gosh, I'm totally going the wrong game there. But make peace with all these war vessels that are out there, all these war ships that are out there, and make peace with them and putting them on the tonnage track and create a game that is the exact opposite of what we had before. Now in the normal game, you get notoriety every time you sink a ship. So the challenge of the game is making sure you don't sink too many of these ships. But you have to sink some of the ships, because if the ocean gets filled up with the ships, you lose. Doesn't matter how well you're doing, ocean gets filled up, you can't add another ship, and you can't take that last Hail Mary play, you're going to lose the game. Well, this game does the exact opposite now with that extra motive. Now instead of sinking ships, you have to go parlay with these ships and create peace throughout all these places. And as you manage to successfully create peace through all these different ships, you're going to actually add goodwill cubes to the game. Now this actually changes up the game quite a bit, because in this game you kind of want to sink ships occasionally, because sinking ships can give you some benefits, it can give you some bonuses, and understand that as long as there's ships in a certain sea location that you happen to be in, it's going to give you penalties to a lot of your actions. So in a way you kind of have to sink these ships. Here's the trick. This is giving you a really hard decision, because all these ships you sink are going to give you 3 times the notoriety hit, which can be such a huge detriment to the game. So adding in these 2 extra motives have added some more replay, more variety, and some extra challenges to this game. Now this is a game that I enjoy immensely. I am so glad that actually one of the viewers on my channel actually suggested this game to me, and thank you so much for suggesting this game, because this is a really well designed game. I'm going to give you a quick spoiler. In the month of October, as many of you know, every month of October I do my top 51 board games of all time. This game is so solidly cemented on my top 51 board games of all time list. It is going to be on there. Where is it going to be? Well, you got to watch the video series to see exactly where it's going to fall, but I can tell you this game is going to be on there. Now the trick is that means one of the games that I really do enjoy is going to drop off the list, and even more of a surprise, actually a couple of games are dropping off the list this turn around, but you're going to have to watch the video series to see that. But that's Nemos War, an absolutely brilliant solo game, and we're all looking for a great solo games to play during the global pandemic going on. When we can't get together with our friends, we want the solo games, and this game has it in spades. Next up we have is Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. Now Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion is a very, very quick version of Gloomhaven, and that's actually not an insult to say that, because Gloomhaven is a game that has close to 100 adventures. This is about 20 different adventures, and they're all very good adventures that are going to tell a very quick story. Well, at least when we compare it to Gloomhaven. This is not an insult to the game, because I'm not saying quick, because this is a game that you're going to play in one night. This is a quick in comparison to its granddaddy, that it's a spiritual, well, I'll call it a spiritual shared story game with. Now, Gloomhaven, if you're not familiar with the game, it's a Euro-style dungeon crawl game where you're going to play various different scenarios. We're going to lay out a board. Your heroes are going to go through a little bit of adventure, and your decisions and your successes and your failures are going to carry out by affecting the grand world. You're going to unlock dungeons, unlock locations, unlock different creatures, and eventually you're going to unlock a grand storyline. Well, all that has been condensed down into 20 different adventures, and there's some really cool things that Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion has done that I really, really hope carries over into Frosthaven, which is going to be the next actual true sequel to Gloomhaven. Now, there's a couple of things that I think are fantastic in this game that probably shouldn't carry over, but they're really great in this base box itself. So one of the things that I really enjoy about Jaws of the Lion is the fact that they've made the game set up so much quicker, so much more efficient, and you know, it's kind of basically the whole idea of Jaws of the Lion. Much more quicker, much more efficient, and much easier to get into the game. Because the idea of this game, instead of building up your map tiles, having to dig through like 30 different map tiles, look at that special map tile and laying out your board and try to build it perfectly, they've created the game by having these map books themselves, which you can actually just lay out exactly like I have right here. And this is going to create the map that our heroes are going to go through the adventure. And as we go through this, we're going to unlock various different story bits. Now, okay, yeah, there's a little bit of spoiler here, but I'm not setting up the bad guy because I don't want to put out too many spoilers here for you. But I like this, and I don't know if I actually want this in Frosthaven, because I actually kind of enjoy the grand sprawling adventure that Frosthaven will be, especially since I know it's going to be in a lot of ways just like Gloomhaven. But I actually like this, and I would actually like to see more little adventures in the Gloomhaven world, much like Jaws of the Lion, where we're going to get about 20 to 25 quests where we're going to use this book. This is brilliant. This is absolutely fantastic. It is so great for me to pull out this box, plop it on the table, which I'm not going to do because I don't want to ruin the microphone, pull out two of these books, flop them down on the table, pull out my heroes, and I'm pretty much 90% ready to go. Unlike with classic Gloomhaven, where I'm still looking for tiles, setting things up. My friends at the other side of the table are pulling out parts. We're all trying to set this table game together. Usually takes 20 minutes, and it's about 5 minutes here or less, and it's actually really darn cool. I like it. I want to see more things. I want to see more in-between adventures just like this. If you're looking at this designer of Gloomhaven, please do more of these. I think this is fantastic, and it's actually at a great price point. The other thing I really liked about this game is the fact that if you haven't played Gloomhaven before, or it's been a while since you played Gloomhaven, they did a really good job of the rulebook, and this is something I really hope happens for Frosthaven. They made a rulebook where they take the rules and they bring them out for you piece by piece, step by step. Now, if you've ever played the original Gloomhaven game, you know that the rule book is, I think it's about 40 or maybe 50 pages. There's a lot of rules, a lot of mechanics, and I can guarantee every time you play the game for the very first time, you pull out Gloomhaven, you're going to get inundated with all those rules and you're going to forget things. That's the beauty of what they did with Jaws of the Lion. They made all the rules for the game come into the game so smoothly, slowly, and cleanly. Matter of fact, the first 5 adventures for the game are basically just adding one more mechanic to the game. Now, if you played Gloomhaven before, I'll explain something to you to kind of emphasize what I'm saying here. Now, the traditional Gloomhaven, at the very start of the game, you're taught that you have a whole bunch of effects. Everybody gets their own individual initiatives, and everybody has their own initial effects and everything that they're going to accomplish on the turn. Well, in Jaws of the Lion, in the very first adventure, the bad guys all have an initiative of 50. There's a lot of special effects that aren't even in the game yet, and a lot of the mechanics have been reduced and simplified in the beginning. But once you complete the first adventure and learn the basic mechanics of the game, you get to go on to Scenario 1 Complete, where it tells you how to level up. Then you get to go on to scenario 2 rules, where it's going to start in adding extra things such as doors, extra mechanics, and give you some more actions and give you some area effect attacks. It's going to give you some additional things. You're going to go through this, and I'm trying to avoid spoilers. I'll go through this quickly. Then you're going to go to scenario 3, where you're going to learn some extra abilities and extra things and some extra rules for the game. This is fantastic. This was a great way to learn Jaws Online, especially for somebody like me who has not played Gloomhaven. It's getting pretty close to a year since I played the game. I forgot a lot of the rules, so it was actually really cool to sit down with this and go, you know, I kind of remember this, but this is kind of easing me back into this, and this is pretty darn cool. I hope they do this with Frosthaven, because that is just a phenomenal way to learn the game. Now, if you haven't picked up Jaws Online yet, I can highly recommend it, especially if you're somebody who enjoys a Euro-style adventure game. Now, the Jaws Online adventure, it's a little bit cliche. I'm not saying that in a negative way. It's just that you're having your big bad bad guy who's trying to accomplish something. I'm not going to give you spoilers. You don't need to turn off the video right here. But he's trying to accomplish something. You're going to hunt him down through various different locations. You're finally going to confront the bad guy and his big old cult, and you can win the game. We've seen that scenario before. It's nothing too new. And again, we kind of miss out on some of the cool things by playing classic Gloomhaven, by seeing this broad, sprawling adventure that's not going to have as many twists and turns as you're going to get in a smaller adventure. But they did a great job here. They did a really phenomenal job. They brought all the good gameplay from Gloomhaven, shrunk it down into a smaller package that has a lot in a box, but at a good price. It's $50 for this box, and there's about, I'd say there's at least $100 worth of value in this box, so they did a really great job. They didn't inundate you with tons of plastic. There's a lot of cardboard in here, which helps bring the price down, and it helps make this a game that you bring out to your table. Matter of fact, my only complaint about Gloomhaven has ever been that I can't play this game up to 5 players, but if you're looking for a great game to play with up to 3 of your good friends, can't go wrong here. That's enough about games I've been playing lately and some really cool things I've been enjoying lately. Let's talk about some future projects that are coming out in the future. Now, the first thing I want to look at is Flying Frog Productions. Now, Shadows of Brimstone is a game that I enjoy a lot. Shadows of Brimstone basically, to me, takes the classic 1980s gameplay from some of Games Workshop's great dungeon crawlers, modernizes it a little bit, and gives it more of a vibe of more like a loot leveling, dungeon crawling style game, and it's done really, really well. It fits a Wild West theme with a whole bunch of strange worlds to create a game where you're slinging dice, you're playing games with friends, and you're leveling up a hero, trying to get up to level 8. And that thing that I really thought they did so phenomenally well with the game was to create a skill tree. Now, the skill tree is that every time you play the game, you have a hero who has about 16 different skills. The problem is you're only ever going to unlock about 7 or 8 of those skills. And the best skills are at the bottom of the tree. So if you take the bottom skill in one of the trees, there's 4 trees for every one of our heroes, that means you only have 3 skill points to put towards another tree or another group of trees. So the abilities you have is going to be based on the hero you play. Now, there's multiple heroes in the game because you have a Japanese scenario, you have a Swamps of Death, which is 4 heroes, you have a City of the Ancients, which is 4 more heroes. There's other little adventure packs that have already been released. There's more adventure packs coming out. There's a Valhalla scenario coming out. There's a Viking scenario coming out. So all in all, there's at least probably going to be close to 30 heroes. And understand that every one of these heroes is going to play differently. One person can take a samurai who's going to be more of a tank. One person can make a samurai who's going to play completely differently. One person can play the preacher as more of a spellcaster who's going to do damage. Another one can be a preacher who's going to be wielding holy wrath with a shotgun. Or another person can be playing the preacher as a complete hero. Again, the cool thing about the game, one of the things that's so great about the game, is the fact that you can play your hero differently. Now, there's a couple negatives about the game, and this is what I want to talk about here really quick. One of the first negatives about the game is there's really no campaign structure of the game. When you sit down at the table with your friends, you're all going to pick one of the adventures. You're going to kind of set the beginning story, and you're going to throw some dice, and you're going to start exploring, going through the adventure. The way the adventure is going to turn out is going to be based on random draws of cards, which is going to create some board layouts. You're going to venture, random bad guys are going to come out, you're going to knock them down, and your adventure goal is to get to the end of whatever that scenario requires you to. Whether you win or lose, as long as your hero lives, you can continue on to do more adventures, return to town, gear up, level up, get new abilities, get rid of mutations, buy stuff, spend money, cool things like that. But the game has never been about the actual story campaign of the game. It's all about the story of your hero and the heroes you're playing with your friends. Now, that's a good thing, but it can get a little bit tiresome a little bit. So there's one cool thing that I do know is coming for the game, at least with the Kickstarter for the Valhalla and for the other one that's coming out for really, really quick. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just forgot, even though I just said it a second ago. But the expansion is coming out, supposed to create an actual true campaign scenario for the game, which is really good. But the other thing that's coming out for the game is the fact that they have actually managed to revise the game. Now the game has had so many different expansions that came out for the game. And the interesting thing about it, back in the beginning, when the early expansions would come out, there wasn't a lot of conflict in the rules. There wasn't a lot of power builds, and there wasn't a lot of the things that made people say, no, if you're going to play the Preacher, you have to play the Preacher this way, because that's the best way to play the Preacher. If you're going to play the Lawman, you have to play the Lawman with these skill trees, because that's the best way to play the Lawman. A lot of those ugly warts didn't start rearing their heads until a lot of expansions come out, a lot of pieces of gear came out, and a lot of things came out, and that was kind of the boon and the bust for the game system. So it's nice to see that Flying Frog Productions is paying attention to this, and they're actually bringing out a revised core set of both of the basic core sets. Now these core sets are going to bring out a modern rulebook, which is going to upgrade a lot of the rules for the game. It's going to bring out a rulebook which is going to upgrade the classes for the game, and it's going to balance out the skill trees, so it's no longer an easy one of, oh, you're playing a Lawman? No, you need to take the skill tree. That's the only way it can be worthwhile to the party. It's going to make it so there's going to be more decisions, which is how the game was originally designed to play. Not only that, the cool thing is, and I want to give Flying Frog Productions 1,000 kudos for this, because there are so many board game companies, who would never ever do this. They would never do it. They'd say, no, buy our game all over again. And look at this, $120 game. I basically don't want to throw away my $100 game I already own to rebuy this game all over again. So what they did is they did one of the really coolest things that I think that they could have ever did, and they bought out an upgrade kit. $30. $30 is all you need to spend to upgrade all this classic gameplay to the future rules for the revised edition of this game. I can't thank Flying Frog Productions enough for this. Instead of me feeling like a person who is being punished for being a first early adopter for a board game, I feel like I'm being rewarded, and this is something that buys loyalty. For me, this is something that's making me buy more games from this company, and this is something that's making me say thank you to the company quite a bit. Now I want to give you a warning. These upgrade kits are going to be in limited quantities, and they have said it many times, and I can appreciate why they're saying this, because they don't want to have a whole bunch of these upgrade kits sitting in a warehouse 5 years from now and gathering dust, because they are a business, they got to survive. I can appreciate that. So if you are somebody who enjoys Shadows of Brimstone, you may want to head over to their website and buy these upgrade kits as quick as possible, because for the $30, it's going to have all the fixed cards, or for all the cards that actually need rule changes to them. It's going to have the skill trees all fixed up for all the classes. The skill trees need to be fixed up, and it's going to have all the things that are actually real gameplay changers are all going to be errated in this kit. So you're going to have a big stack of cards. You're going to have the larger card tiles that for the city locations, all the ones that have any major rule changes on them, balance changes, they're all going to be included in this upgrade kit. Now, of course, you could go out there and rebuy the original box sets if you want, but for me, I don't see a reason to do that. Yes, they may have upgraded the sculpts and the miniatures, but they're not. The original sculpts were decent. They were good enough for me. I have them glued together. Been slowly working on getting them all painted up, so I don't have to rebuy all these miniatures all over again, re-glue them all together, and just repaint them up all over again. So I'm really happy that they're offering these upgrade kits. It's a phenomenal thing for them to offer, and I just want to give Flying Frog Productions one heck of a thumbs up for doing it. Now, if you have not played Shadows of Brimstone and you're looking for a great dungeon crawl to play with up to 70 of your friends, yeah, this game goes all the way up to 8 players. Now, if you decide to do that craziness, what I actually suggest is you break up into 2 4-player groups, and each of you tackle your own dungeon alone, because that can allow you to still rib each other across the table, give bragging rights, and you can even do a race between the other players, which can be a lot of fun. But if you don't mind playing with up to other 7 friends, understand that you're looking at about a 6-hour game, and if you're okay with that, heck, have a lot of fun with it. This is a game that's really tons and tons of fun. If you like a good dungeon crawl and you want a game that has some really cool character upgrades, and it's less about playing a campaign story and more about leveling up a hero, creating this grandiose hero who has all these cool gadgets, all this cool gear, all these cool level ups, all these cool powers, they get to level 8 to have bragging rights against your other friends, because you survived growing a tentacle out of your arm, and you managed to get the super Gatling gun of destruction, and you can take out a whole room of giant spiders in one roll of the dice. That's the game you want to pick up, and that's the game you're going to get here, because it's a phenomenal game for that style of gameplay. Shadows of Brimstone is a game I enjoy so immensely, and it's a game I have not done a video series for on the channel, because I have been watching over the past year how they have been slowly adjusting the rules, making modifications, and the last thing I want to do is make a tutorial video for a game that's still kind of in a flowing state. Now that we have a new solidified version of the rules, I'm probably going to be putting a really good solid tutorial and a good video series out for Shadows of Brimstone. So look out for that on the channel later this year. Next up, we have Planet Apocalypse. Now, when I'm recording this video, it is the weekend right now, and Planet Apocalypse should be going live in 2 days. But hopefully I'll have this video edited and uploaded in time, but if not, you can probably go check out the actual Kickstarter at that point, because Planet Apocalypse Return to Planet Apocalypse, which is the second Kickstarter, is coming out on Monday the 21st. Now, if you're not familiar with Planet Apocalypse, it's from Peterson Games. This is a phenomenal tower defense game. It takes the classic mechanics that Peterson Games is so well known for, very simple, easy to teach games, mixed in with some deep, rich gameplay, lots of variety, different ways to play it, and of course the giant miniatures that they're also very well known for. Now, this game is a tower defense game, but the cool thing about this game is as much about the heroes as it is about the maps, as it is about the bad guys, and as it is about the Grand Lord that you're going to beat. Because you can mix up all these things that add a phenomenal amount of replay variety of this game, just based on the final bad guy you're fighting, based on the map you're playing on, based on the heroes you're choosing, based on the way you're going to level up your heroes, based on the cards and the way they're coming out, and the level ups the way they're coming out. And it's a game that plays all the way up to 5 players, and it's balanced very interestingly based on all the other player counts. It's interesting how the game plays, because based on your lord, the challenges and the decisions you're going to make are going to be different between a 2-player game all the way up to a 5-player game, and that's one of the things I really enjoy about the game. Now, the new Kickstarter for this game is really great. It's going to add some more maps, always a great thing for the game. It's going to add some new lords to the game. Yeah, that's always a great thing. And it's also going to add some more Circle 4 level bad guys to the game, which is cool. And the other cool thing about this game, and Peterson Games is doing something they don't do too often, is they're going to have a special deal for the first 48 hours only. So if you even think you're interested in Planet Apocalypse, and if you like a cooperative tower defense style game, pick up this game. It's one of the best tower defense games I've played this year for this style of game. It's a phenomenal game. It's a heck of a lot of fun. It's a great game to play with a lot of your friends because of the variety in the game. But if you're back within the first 48 hours, they're going to give you a giant mantipede miniature, which is also a bad guy you can use in the game. So that's very, very cool. Now, of course, you're back within the first 48 hours. The cool thing about Peterson Games is they are anti-exclusives, so you can pay extra for it. So, like I said, if you have any of the smallest inkling that you may be interested in this game, I suggest back in the first 48 hours, because you're going to get a very nice surprise. Now, if you want to learn more about Planet Apocalypse, check out my video series on this game. I did a very thorough series on this game. A quick overview, a tutorial, a review, and actually some sample gameplay so you can see how the game plays. But trust me, if you're looking for a great game that plays as a tower defense game, you're not going to go wrong here. And not only that, they also add in something that is really, really exciting for me, is the fact that they are having a 5th edition D&D rulebook added in that's going to tell you how to play a RPG, a D&D style RPG, in a world that's literally gone to hell, which I think is really awesome. I cannot wait to get this book, because as you know, that is, if you're watching the video channel for a while, you know I've been playing a pretty long D&D campaign now for quite a while. And for me, I think it would just be really awesome just to blow up the world, quite literally, and have fun with all the players. I think that's awesome. Cannot wait to check that out. We're getting some new maps, some new bad guys, some new 4 circles, and of course, we're getting typical Peterson Games. Very easy to teach, very rich mechanics, very rich gameplay, and very rich depth of play. Next up is Armada from Mantic Games, and this is Armada is a ship combat tactical game in the Kings of War world. Now, I love naval combat games. Dreadfleet was a phenomenal game from Games Workshop. Games Workshop is actually used to be one of my favorite companies when it came to naval combat games. They had Man of War, which is a beyond awesome naval combat game. And then they had Dreadfleet, which is also a beyond phenomenal game. The only unfortunate thing about Dreadfleet is it basically was a one-off game that they brought out to kind of rekindle the flame for Man of War, and then to tease us all, and then just have all our hopes sunk to the bottom of Davy Jones's locker, because they never followed up with anything additional. Now, Mantic Games is going to do that very, very thing by bringing out a naval-style combat war game in their Kings of War universe. Now, this game is not coming to Kickstarter. There's already a really cool, awesome thing, because you can go right now to Mantic's website, pre-order this game, and have it at your doorstep this November to start playing with your friends. Now, in the very beginning, there's only going to be 2 factions, but they're already talking about 2 more factions that are going to come out in the first of the year. I think the first 2 factions are going to be the Orcs and the Humans, and I'm not too up on the Kings of War universe, because when it comes to my fantasy skirmish level games, I'm still stuck with Games Workshop. I'm playing Warcry, which I think is a great game, so I haven't gotten too much into Mantic's Kings of War universe, so I don't want to say the faction names because I know I'm going to butcher them, get them wrong here. But the cool thing is, right out of the gate, you're going to have the ability to buy two complete factions. I think it's a human and an orc faction, or a royal human, or the high kings. No. Actually, no. The first one I think is the religious faction, or I probably have that wrong too. Somebody correct me in the comments down below. But basically, we're going to get two very solid factions right out of the gate. And they're going to have multiple ships. We have our large ships, we have our medium ships, we have our small ships. We have the ability to buy nice, cool mats, much like what you can get with Dreadfleet, so you're not stuck on this horrible plane, on these horrible little paper fold-out maps that tear and they just don't last, they're not that great. Plus, they're going to have different kind of counters that you can use for all the different resources. And as you see, they have multiple starter fleets that you can use to build up your factions and play these naval combat games. Now, if you're not familiar with naval combat games, these are some of the best kind of miniatures skirmish games. Matter of fact, if you ever played X-Wing from Fantasy Flight Games, a lot of the mechanics from Fantasy Flight Games, X-Wing game and Attack Wing and all those games, they were inspired by taking a lot of mechanics from these naval games from the 80s and the 90s, such as Man of War, such as Dreadfleet, and all these other games were basically, they were inspired by these games. So these are some classic games, and I think it's so awesome that Mantic is bringing back these classic style of games with some upgraded mechanics, some upgraded rules, and bringing it into the modern era. And I am so excited about getting this. I cannot wait till this is coming out. It's already up for pre-order, and I am so looking forward to this one. Now, I've always been hot and cold with Mantic games. There's been a few other games that I thought were phenomenal. Dead Zone, and there are other games that have come out that I just can't believe I forgot the name of it. The game that's much like Blood Bowl. Wow, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank right now. I need more caffeine apparently. But they've had some great, fantastic games from Mantic Games. There's also had the Hellboy game. They had the Lead of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which hasn't been shipped yet, or maybe it has been shipped, but that's also a game that looked really awesome. They've also had a few games that was not too hot on. Dungeon Saga and Star Saga were both games I thought were But the thing I like about Mantic Games is they do have a tendency for bringing out some really good war games, some good skirmish style games, and I think Armada is definitely going to be one of their great games. Next up is Hyperborea. Now, if you're not familiar with Hyperborea, where have you been? This is one of the greatest bag building games that's ever been designed. And if anybody ever tells you otherwise, they're wrong, or they were somebody who played by the original rules for the game that had the mistakes without getting the FAQ and playing the correct version of this game. Because Hyperborea is one of the greatest games that was designed for the bag style games. The basic idea of Hyperborea is this was a semi-war game with some very strong Euro mechanics thrown in there, where the basic idea is you were trying to dominate a war-torn world that has recovered from a grand nuclear holocaust, and your empire is returning to the world and going out there explorer, and yeah, you're going to war and attacking other players. There's engine building, there was a tech tree, there was exploration, there was asymmetric powers, there was a map that changed every single time you played the game. There's 3 different ways to play the game, a short, medium, or long game, and the game had a really cool mechanic where you had certain cubes in a bag. You pull out a couple cubes out of the bag that had different colors, and you place these cubes on your tech tree board, and that decided the actions you were taking on that turn. And once you use an action, it was inaccessible to you until you reset your entire board, put all your cubes back in the bag, and start doing it again. This game was a great, and still is a great game. Now, what is really cool is there's a company that has taken the first expansion, which was nearly impossible to get, Light and Shadow, and brought it back out. And if you own Hyperborea, you need to go to this website and pre-order the expansion. It's $25, and it looks like the expansion is getting ready to either be shipping very soon, or it might even be coming out to the warehouses for this company very soon, so they start shipping it out to everybody. So the cool thing is this isn't a Kickstarter thing. You can go to this company, buy the expansion right now, and get an expansion for one of the great, fantastic games, and in my opinion, the best bag building game out there. Hyperborea Light and Shadow adds some extra mechanics to a game that is a phenomenal game. And again, if you haven't played the game and somebody tells you the game is not that great, they're wrong. Hyperborea was an awesome, and still is a great, awesome game. I have taken out Hyperborea and played with players who have never played the game, and once we're done playing the game, they immediately turn around, pull out Amazon, and order a copy of that game. That's how awesome this game is. And finally, we're going to round things out with Maquina Arcana. Now, Maquina Arcana is a game that's coming to Kickstarter very soon. I believe it comes out on the 22nd. And before we go anywhere, I have to ask, where the heck was I in 2018? I never saw this game, but once this game was presented to me, I was like going, oh my gosh, this game ticks every single box that I like when it comes to a classic dungeon crawling game. Now, if you're one of the lucky people who picked up on this game, good for you. I am definitely going to be looking out for this game when it comes out. And basically what this is this is a dungeon crawling style game. mixed with a weird world mechanic, or basically a Cthulhu theme. It's basically a steampunk meets a Cthulhu game where the players are dungeon crawlers playing through a game where you're trying to explore and going through the story that's going to evolve based on the way you're going through the mechanics of this game. Now, a couple of things that set this game apart from classic dungeon crawlers for me is the fact that when you start the game, you're going to lay out this 10 by 10 board, and you're going to randomly select this board every time you play the game. So you're going to go underneath the table, shuffle about 8 of these boards out, and you can put out one of the boards on the top of the table, and they're all double-sided. And then you're going to start working through this map. And now this map is interactive. There's treasure chests that you can go through. There's these different locations you interact with. And the basic idea is you're trying to get a resource. And if you have enough of this resource, you can unlock something else that's going to advance the story. And when you advance the story, something may happen, such as you may lay out another board, or things may happen that's going to tell this evolving story that is very kind of a dark story, but very, very traditional Cthulhu, Lovecraftian mythos type of story. Matter of fact, the monsters are very Lovecraftian. The heroes have a very strong Lovecraftian feel, and the gear and equipment you're going to find as you play the game is very Lovecraftian. And speaking of the heroes and the monsters and the gear, this is a very cool thing about the game. So as you play this game, you're going to pick a story before you start the game. And you're going to take this deck of stories, and you're going to organize in special order. You're going to flip over the top card, and it's going to begin a story, and tell you what you need to do to unlock the next card. You're going to flip over that card, and it's going to advance the story, and you go through it. But every time you play the game, while the basic overlay of the story is going to be the same, the game's going to play differently every time you play the game, because the monsters and the heroes and the board layout and everything like that is going to play out differently. Because as you play this game, every single player has 3 stats. They have like an essence stat, which is what they're going to use to unlock further parts of the story. They have a movement stat, and then, I'm sorry, not movement stat, they have a stamina statistic, which is used for movement, for equipping gear, for using stuff, and for attacking. They also have a hit point stat. And if a player loses all their hit points, then they're going to start controlling all the bad guys. Because in the game, this is a fully cooperative game, but the enemies work on a certain AI, and if a player is knocked out, they're going to start controlling the bad guys, which means the bad guys are going to start getting much smarter and much more aggressive. Also really cool about this game is as you play this game, in the early levels, when the heroes are low level, they're going to run to low level, level 1 monsters. As the heroes start leveling up and start unlocking more of the story, we're going to start unlocking level 2 monsters, level 3 monsters, level 4 monsters, and on up. So they're going to get much more challenging and much more difficult. And the game is going to evolve and continue to tell the story. Now, this original Kickstarter from 2018, I believe it came with 5 different stories, and every one of these stories, like I said, played out very differently. But this new Kickstarter is going to offer a new sequel to the game, which is going to offer more stories. And unfortunately, I can only see this part of the Kickstarter page, so I can't see too much more. But I have seen a couple other things that look really, really cool. And one of the really nice, awesome things about this game is the price of this game is great. If you look at the Kickstarter for the original one, it was $75 for the original game for a phenomenal amount of replay and a phenomenal amount of variety and a phenomenal amount of gameplay in one single box. Heck, for the price of this game, you can buy 2 copies of this game for the price of one cool mini or not game and get 10 times the amount of gameplay out of this game. So you have some phenomenal artwork, some really cool gameplay, a large amount of variety, maps and stories and quests that are going to play out differently every time you play the game, with a huge amount of replay variety, a huge amount of gameplay, and just a huge amount of awesomeness in this game. I can't wait till this game comes out, and yes, I'm honestly kicking myself that I completely missed this game in 2018, because if I knew about it, oh my gosh, would I own this game, and I would definitely be playing this game right now today, because this game looks so damn awesome. And with that, we're going to bring the vlog to a close for the month of September. If you have any comments or questions, make sure you leave them down in the YouTube comments down below. I'll be sure to get to them as quickly as I can. You can also feel free to email me at off-the-shelf board game reviews. That's otsbgr@gmail.com. I'll be sure to answer your questions as quickly as I can. If you enjoy this channel and you want to help support the channel, think about supporting the channel over on Patreon. Patreon.com/otsbgr. This channel is 100% sponsor free, so your support can help keep the lights on. If you enjoy this channel, you enjoy this content, if you enjoy these videos, click that like button, click that subscribe button, and as always, thanks for watching.